Hey, I am back, and I am all by myself because this last 2 weeks was as hard as it's been to get an episode out for completely opposite reasons. One, last week, and I'm not going to I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but last week I had the next phase of getting my teeth fixed and worked on, and I had an interview scheduled, which I'm going to get to here in a little bit, for the Thursday night, and I couldn't do it. I didn't want to deal with the pain and having to talk to somebody. I did that with Matt, and we barely got through my episode. I was struggling when I did my episode when Matt Basler came on, but I didn't want to do that again. So I canceled the episode and said, I released the tweet and saying, hey, we're going to take a week off. And then last night, this being Friday morning as I record this, last night I was going to rescheduled the same interview. That interview was Will, and I'm going to butcher it again, although he told me how to pronounce it. Hoffnicht, something like that. Will is the owner, creator of 100% Comics. You can go to 100percentcomics.com, and that's PERCENT, so spell it out. And he does a lot of really big support and a lot of producing of independent small press comic books. The connection there is Dan Moeller. Daniel, multi-time guest on this show, creator of Psychonauts Presents and Mother Vine, the story that's going in that. He put me in touch with this guy because Daniel's first story appeared in issue 2, and I don't know how they pronounce it, but it's H% C. So I don't know if it's HXC, how to pronounce it, and we were going to get into that. But it is a small press comic with a bunch of you submit a bunch of creators and things like that, put their stuff in it. And that's where Daniel, his comic debuted, and then he went on to do this Wizard, ERD, which is a play on Wizard magazine, and that's kind of where our interview stopped last night. That was another part of Daniel's comic appeared in there, and then Daniel decided to do his own comic book. But more importantly, the reason we were talking to Will is he also has he's doing a grant, which is a Make More Comics art grant. It's essentially a $500 directly to the creator of anyone that's wanting to do a self-published small press comic book. And he's got a lot of basic information, some guidelines you can go to. You can look at makemorecomics.com to see more of that. And we had to reschedule that last night because I sat down to talk to him, and my internet, I've had all kinds of problems with the internet and laptops with work this week. And the internet was so intermittent about how it was off, like strong signal, weak signal, that we did 5 minutes, and I don't know what he said. I got like part of every sentence that he said, and he was doing the same with me, and it was all on my side. So I just said, hey, let's scrap this. I apologize. We never claimed to be a professional show, but we're better than this. Let's try this again. So we're going to reschedule. And I can tell you right away, I was going to like the guy because he's a few years younger than me, but same in the wheelhouse of the same comic book era that I come from and stuff. So it was going to be a comic pod, so it was going to be a comic-centric episode. So we'll get back to that. Just now I don't have to do this intro and this story when we do that episode because I've given it to you now, and I'll tag Will, and I certainly apologize to Will for having to bail on you once and then reschedule on you because of the internet and just a whole bunch of my issues. I hate that. But that's okay. We're going to get through, and I'm going to bring you this solo episode right now. And the whole reason it's a solo episode because I'm recording it very early Monday morning to try to get one out because I don't want to take 2 weeks off. And there's some things I wanted to talk about. And since we were going to do a comic pod with Will last night, some of these things I might not be fresh by the time we get to them when we do a normal episode, which I'm probably going to reach out to Jay and Bender and see if they want to come over this week to do another one. And we're still have the search party out for the All Points Bulletin for Tommy. We'll find him one day and he'll come back. We always leave a bowl of milk and food out just in case he roams back up, and that way he doesn't, he has something and he feels like home. But beside all that, let's jump into some of the things that I've been watching doing this last couple weeks while we haven't had an episode. One, I had, my work has this big annual sales meeting where we go into these really sunny, awesome places, and we get to be with all of our peers and coworkers and learn a lot of stuff, get a lot of great information, and do a lot of drinking at night. Obviously, that didn't happen due to COVID, so we did this online one. So I was stuck at home, but they gave us these giant breaks in the middle of the day to try to, I think, keep us from losing our sanity. So in these breaks, and while I've been working at home, in the background, I put on an older AMC show, and I think it's old. I know it's done, but I can't remember when it finished. But I started this show back when it first started on season 1, and only mildly enjoyed it. In fact, I gave season 1 a 2 out of 5. I didn't think it was great. I thought it had some redeemable qualities, and I'm talking about Into the Badlands. On paper, it should have everything that pushed all my buttons, and for whatever reason, it was okay. I watched all the way through it, and season 1's not as bad as I thought it was. I might raise that to 2.5 out of 5. But after reading some of the reviews, I was like, I'll go ahead and finish this show. So I watched season 2 and 3, and there is going to be one slight spoiler, so be prepared for that. But I got to tell you, my season 2 and season 3, those are close to 4 out of 5. It's like 3.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed some of the characters they introduced, some of the growth of the characters. Now there's still some hokey stuff and some. It was almost like they kept writing swerves or plot twists or characters stabbing each other in the back, and then they had to re-stab someone else in the back. Kind of like they were winging it as they were going, but it worked out. The whole thing worked out. It culminated in this big battle with this bad guy. What was his name? His name Pilgrim, bad guy named Pilgrim, who ended up being the big bad. And there was a lot of big bads throughout this thing. Like, you never knew who the big bad was. Quinn was the original big bad, and then the widow, and then Chow, and then it all turned out to be Pilgrim. And I thought they did a good job of really emphasizing one of the reasons this guy was able to become the big bad is because they were fighting with themselves so much. And throughout the entire series, when it first starts, they only just brief allusions to the fact that this is a world built on top of a world that failed, the world we know. And they really start leaning into it as the series goes. And one of the things, they have cars, they have opium, poppy seed fields, and all that stuff. And they have a lot of things that are holdovers, but they don't have guns. And here's where the spoilers coming in. Had this show continued, it would have been cool because, they said... there's some people with superpowers they call the Dark Ones, or the Gift, or whatever they want to call it. But when they beat Pilgrim, one of the sayers predicts, if this isn't over, you only think it's over, and actually a new threat, the most dangerous that we've ever had, will be unearthed. And one of the bad guys left over from Pilgrim's army, seen in a pit while they were digging up Azeroth, the famed city, or a gateway to it, he digs up a gun and he shoots. And the question I had is why is there all this stuff and there's no guns? Well, I guess we get the answer that guns were going to be the next big threat, which is kind of an too on the nose, social commentary on the threat that is guns. But still, cool show, some cool stunts. I liked some of it. I ended up enjoying it, and it's just a shame that it didn't keep going. So, but hey, what are you going to do? One of the other things that we watched over the last few weeks was Missy and I on a relatively sports-free weekend a couple weekends ago. We bought or rented Freaky, the Vince Vaughn vehicle, which is a play on Freaky Friday, a body swap. Only it's a serial killer in Vince Vaughn's character who ends up swapping bodies inadvertently, I think is probably what happened. I don't think he intended to do it, but it worked out well. It's sort of with a teenager who was kind of an awkward teen, not a cheerleader by any means or anything like that. Well, she was the team mascot, but he accidentally swaps bodies with her. And I got to tell you, this movie was a solid 4 out of 5 for me. It was as fun as you can get. And for the most part, that had everything to do with Vince Vaughn playing the part of a teenage girl trapped in his body. If you could pick one guy in Hollywood that would pull that off in a fun way, it's Vince Vaughn, and man, did he. And that's not to poop on the rest of the cast. Catherine Newton was the the girl who ends up, has to act sort of like a maniacal Vince Vaughn. And the rest of the young cast is great. And one thing of note I thought was fun is Alan Ruck. For those who don't know, he's Cameron from Ferris Bueller, the what is he? The depressed friend from the Ferrises. He is a giant asshole in this movie, and it's kind of hard to see him as an asshole considering he's Cameron. He's Ferris's best friend. He's Cam. So, it's a little funny, but very good movie. I suggest everybody. I mean, you might not want to wait. We paid the $20, and I think they kept it at the $20 in the rental because it is so popular. It would have had legs and made a lot of money in the theater for an R-rated movie. I'm sure of it. And you have to remember too, going in, it is a hokey slasher film, intentionally hokey. A lot of slapstick murder and gore, like pointless blood splatters and stuff, and over the top scene chewing from Vince Vaughn. So well worth the price of admission, so go check it out. Speaking of things that I, on a whim, checked out, I have, for whatever reason, I had a good stretch of dubbed series on Netflix, one Japanese and one Korean. I actually saw a post from a family member on this first show I'm about to mention, and I liked the fight scene enough. I'm like, well, I'm going to check that show out. And it was called Alice in Borderland. Yeah, Alice in Borderland. And it is fucking awesome. It's a Japanese show. It's all about these three dudes that are on the run for the cops. I mean, not for anything massive, but like just from being general nuisance makers in public places. And they hide in this bathroom stall. And when they come out, there is no one around them. The whole world's disappeared. And they find themselves in this giant game, almost kind of like a... they find themselves with some other people. They end up finding a long way. Almost, I made this comparison to Bombcast J that it's kind of like a what's the Battle Royale, another Japanese anime I'm sorry, a manga turned TV or movie. And I mean, but it's a little more advanced, high tech special effects and whatnot. And there's a game master that's running things. They're going to come back with a season 2 because I'm not going to give you too many spoilers, but they win and they just find themselves that they've leveled up into the next challenge of the game. So well worth checking out. I liked it a lot. I liked it so much that I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this next one a try. And this was a Korean dubbed show called Sweet Home. And I know on the surface, Sweet Home does not sound like a show that I would watch. But the poster on Netflix for it is like a bunch of monsters in this building. And that's exactly what the show is. I can't tell you yet why there's monsters, what the monsters do. And it's almost, if I could compare it to anything, it's if Evil Dead, the Necronomicon infected a city block. And these people, I mean, they call it an infection, but it's well worth watching. Actually, I've got to watch the very last episode. Probably going to do that today, but I enjoyed the shit out of it. Really bloody, really gory, kind of nonsensical at points. No real explanation. Maybe they'll wrap it all up. I'm guessing there's going to be a season 2. I don't know, but both of these shows, I give Alice in Borderland probably a 4 out of 5, and I'm positive that's the name of it. And then I give the Sweet Home about a 3.75 out of 5. Both worth watching. That was all the things we watched on Netflix. I don't think it is. We also watched Night Stalker, and I wish Missy was down here to talk about that. That's the Richard Ramirez documentary. It's, just so you know going into it, it is the first episode is all world building on the detectives of the case and their background before they took over the Night Stalker case. And then it has to do with the media in the case, and then they really dive in the third and fourth of Richard Ramirez himself. Good show. He's one of the scarier guys. And I heard on another podcast, I heard an interesting take when they were talking about it. I guess because California for the longest time, even through the 80s, there wasn't a lot of people that had an air conditioning unit or a central air unit. So because they didn't need it, you're in California. So they would sleep at night with their windows open when it was a heat wave, And this is what made it so easy for Richard Ramirez to sneak in and kill people in their house. He didn't have to break in. People's windows were wide open. They don't talk about that in the documentary, but if you look that up, that's kind of it's just a cool coincidence. Well, not cool. It's not so cool coincidence because it turns out people died, but a pretty solid coincidence on what allowed him to do this so easy. And I give that documentary probably a 3.5 out of 5. So it was kind of fun. I thought it was funny. The person that the podcast I was listening to, like, that's why Richard Ramirez is a single reason no one on the West Coast sleeps with their windows open. And man, he was just as random as can be. The only thing, and this is another spoiler, what caught him is that son of a bitch just only had one pair of shoes. He just didn't change shoes. And, and his gun. And he didn't always use the gun, but those two things is what caught him. Other than that, they were having a hell of a time catching him because, again, there was no method. There was no like Jeffrey Dahmer seducing young gay men and bringing them back. There was no Ted Bundy. He was just randomly picking out people and kids. And you don't hear a lot, if you just know the Richard Ramirez story, you don't hear a lot about the things he did to kids because they had those things thrown out. And before you get panicky over that or get up in arms over that, they brought the first kid to trial to testify because you had to have him testified, and they knew they had him on like 16 counts of murder. So they were like, they already had him for like 150 life sentences or death sentences or whatever because they did. And they were like, let's just throw out all the kid cases because we don't want to make these kids testify and relive this, which was smart. I mean, they saw the toll it took on the first kid, and they were like, no, we're not going to do this again. So it was, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's kind of, it was interesting to hear that because Missy, who has read some of the Night Stalker books or whatever, was like, well, I did not know he did that to kids. And that's just because they didn't pursue it. They just let it go. Not that he didn't get justice for it, but they certainly didn't want to put kids through that, which was kind of cool. On the police's part, not to just like go. I mean, they had the guy, so it didn't matter. Speaking of Dan Mohler earlier, Daniel, for those that don't follow Aaron Conaway, author, on Facebook, or even Aaron Conaway on Facebook, or I suggest he's on TikTok now. He's taken to branding himself on TikTok, which is it's a pretty popular platform now. He's doing like teaser trailers for his upcoming books. And he's got a series of books called The Harrowed Earth that's coming out this year. And you've probably seen the logo from me. I actually created the logo for him. He and I had a big back and forth on it. And we sent it. Did a lot of that conversation over the phone and over email. And we came up with that logo. And you can see it in some of my posts. And I'm gonna allude to something at the end of this here in a second. But it's a novella. It's like a world where in 2026, I believe that's it. But it's a post-alien invaded Earth. And I don't know any more details really other than that. But it is it's going to be a series of novellas set in different parts of the United States in that world. And the first book is coming out in March, and Daniel has done the cover for it. The book is called Appalachian Blues. I don't know. You can't hold me to how big. I think these are going to be around 100 pages. I don't know. But Daniel has the first book of that, or the first cover to that coming out. And what's cool for me, that's cool. I've already seen the cover, and the cover's out there for the world. And I guess I'm breaking some news, but I'm not going to give you any more details than this. The second book, which is called Cicero Wants You, is the cover's by me. I did the cover. I recently finished it last night, sent it over to Aaron for approval. We went back and forth. Really, there was probably 5 or 6 iterations of the cover. 3 really hit for Aaron, and we worked off of one, developed into a second, developed into the third one. I actually had a completely different one. I didn't like the pose that I started, kind of scrapped it. And then we changed a lot of things with the color and added some things to it. So I'm very excited. I can't wait for Appalachian Blues to come out because, one, I'm excited about, seeing that. And then 2, which means we're that much closer to the trailer or the teaser for Cicero Wants You, which is my cover. So I'm excited. Regardless, you will see the logo that I designed for him on every book. So that's exciting too. And, I believe, and I can't remember, but Aaron Conaway, I think you can look for him on Patreon and you can see all of his stuff there. You can go to aaronconaway.me, I believe, is where you can buy all of his stuff. Or it's going to be on Amazon. You can buy them all on Amazon. And I believe that the books are going to be released as e-reader only, so tablets only. And then when they're all collected and done, he's going to release one big omnibus for it. And I'm fingers crossed. I've already put in some thoughts and designs for the cover to the actual book, the omnibus. So, yeah. And that kind of leads me to the last thing I'm going to talk about today. It's not, this is not no complaint from my wife, but she's been bitching at me, not bitching, but she told me, hey, you've been doing a lot of this art stuff in your spare time and a lot of this design work for people. So I think this weekend I'm going to sit down and create a Facebook page and since I already have these websites that I can use, a website for my art and design, and I think I'm going to start charging for logos. Now, that said, there's a lot of people that got some free stuff out of me, and those people sometimes I consider family as well as good friends. You don't have to panic. You're probably not going to get gouged at anything. Sometimes there's a trade for labor, like Aaron has offered many times. I think he feels guilty that I'm doing these things for him, but he doesn't understand how fun these things are for me to do. So I don't want him to feel guilty. I just, if I haven't charged him, it's because I consider him family, for borderline family, So that said, if you're just an acquaintance or a stranger, you might start getting charged soon. And the only way to do that is start kind of advertising to do it. And trust me, I've got friends like Tommy Thornberry, who used to be one of my customers. He's played D&D with me for just a cup of coffee. He's also an amazingly talented guy who actually worked professionally in design stuff. In fact, Tommy Thornberry Art, I think you can Google that or go to Instagram or whatever and see some really fun stuff that he does. He is a professional at this. Now, that's what I intended to do in life when I went to school. It just did not pan out. So the stuff I'm talking about, like pretty low key stuff, not super complicated, but like I'm talking t-shirt designs for sport team designs. Like I've done all of our softball teams for the Sting, and I'm going to put all that stuff up on the page. So yeah, it should be fun. We'll see where it goes. It could be very cool. I don't know. I don't even know if it'll ever work out. I've been paid before from my buddy Hal Pal's wife in the past. But it's not my main job, so it's not going to take up, 40 hours a week, but I would very much like it. And I don't think I'm not spilling the beans here. I don't think, but my buddy Scott, former neighbor, former Bad Idea podcast host, he might be starting a disc golf business. And so I helped him do his logo. So I'm excited. I haven't showed that to the world. I'll ask him his permission first before I do, and we'll see where it goes. Yeah, other than that, man, I don't know that I have anything else to talk about today. I've rambled on for about 23 minutes, by myself. Like I said, I'm going to try to get old Jay and Bender on here, maybe Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, somewhere in that range, maybe Tuesday. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Other than that, I got nothing else today. I've got no one else to say bye. I appreciate you giving me the 25 minutes that it's going to take after I add the music. And in fact, I'll just play the music right now. See you.